Mauricio Macri's conservative pro-party almost lost an embarrassing election in Buenos Aires City recently. Since that election, the right-wing leader has gone from a staunch opponent of all the policies of the ruling national government to now endorsing them.
The truth is that today we can say, in front of every single Argentinian, see, we were right in all the initiatives we did. So much so that even the opposition now says that we were right.
Mauricio Macri said that if elected as president, he will not abolish the internationally acclaimed universal child allowance. He also announced that energy company YPF and flag carrier airline Aerolíneas Argentinas will remain state-run, but according to him, well managed.
There has been a revival of developmentalist views in an important sector of Argentina's bourgeoisie. I think that Macri has been seriously affected by this, because it means that much of the corporate sector is opting for neo-developmentalist approaches, and I think the political force that Macri leads and its idea of sudden and radical change will increasingly have less of an impact on society.
The sudden and sharp turn in Macri's narrative has left the pro-party in a climate of uncertainty, disarray and strong internal reproaches.
How does this affect the campaign? We'll have to see how things evolve in coming days. What reactions will it generate from the pro-voter? Not so much the pro-activist, but the pro-voter itself.
In short, Macri is still not talking about what he will do if elected president. The strategy of not having a political platform available for the electorate to analyse gives Macri room to confuse the public with the mock-up progressive discourse, which on one hand attempts to pull in the undecided voters and on the other covers up the true, reloaded neoliberal economic plan he has always wanted to execute. Leo Poblete-Gaduti, TeleSUR, Buenos Aires.
Just 6 days after the FARC set in place a unilateral ceasefire, President Juan Manuel Santos ordered to stop bombing raids against FARC camps. The decision comes as both sides have committed to de-escalate the armed conflict.
We have agreed to de-escalate the conflict. To de-escalate the conflict means to slowly turn down the fire. And what does that mean in real terms? Less death, less sorrow, less victims.
According to the Conflict Analysis Center, CERAC, merely by the FARC's compliance with its unilateral truce, violence has significantly reduced. Now, with the suspension of airstrikes, the conditions are expected to improve, not just in terms of the confrontations, but also at the negotiations in Havana.
The premise of negotiating in Havana while the armed conflict continues in Colombia has already been proved to fail, as none of the parties can advance in their negotiating positions on the basis of violence. Now, if we withdraw the conflict and violence from the negotiations, that will strengthen the process in Havana.
Meanwhile, the current de-escalation of the conflict is already bringing relief to Colombia's rural residents, as they are the ones that know all too well the devastating impact of war.
We know how the bombs fall down. We know what it's like to have 10, 12 helicopters shooting while there is machine gunning going on the ground. The sound of jet fighters, it's pure desperation.
Regardless of this being the second time the government has halted airstrikes and the 6th FARC unilateral truce, rural leaders stay hopeful as they call on both sides to don't give up this latest de-escalation. While a final peace agreement still needs to be reached, social organizations consider that further victims must be prevented. Hopefully that will be a key outcome of the de-escalation of the conflict. Natalia Margarita, TeleSUR, Bogotá, Colombia.
Due to an acute shortage in medicine and equipment used in the dialysis process, hundreds of Palestinian kidney patients in Gaza are at risk of dying. According to the Ministry of Health in Gaza, more than 450 patients in the territory suffer from kidney failure and need 3 dialysis sessions weekly. TeleSUR met with the General Director of Pharmacy at the Palestinian Ministry of Health, Dr. Munir al-Bursh, who said that the repeated closure of border crossings into Gaza has led to this acute shortage.
The crisis of shortage in medicine and medical disposals has been ongoing ever since a tightened blockade was imposed on the Gaza Strip, but it has become worse lately. The ministry has literally none of more than 154 types of medicine. We are unable to provide our patients with the essential medical services. We lack 1 therapeutic milk needed for the treatment of cases of phenylketonuria. The mistreatment of this disease could result in disabled children. 2. Cancer medications. 3. Treatments needed at the intensive care units. We ask the international organizations to interfere in order to save the medical situation in the Strip.
It is estimated that Gaza's hospitals are suffering from at least a 70% shortage in medicines, largely due to the border closure and Israel's protective edge operation last year that left Gaza's hospitals lacking medical supplies. Some children have also died due to the failure of hospital backup generators that have run out of fuel, despite repeated warnings from the Ministry of Health in Gaza that the fuel shortage is aggravating an ever-worsening health crisis. Nothing has yet to be done. Noor Harazin, teleSUR TV, Gaza.
For more than 7 years, Viviana, like the families of the more than 1,500 victims to femicide in the state of Mexico, have demanded that the authorities apply a so-called gender alert for the whole state so as to prevent and sanction gender-based violence. After years of denial, the Mexico State Governor, Rubio Avila, finally petitioned the measure for 11 of the state's 125 municipalities.
We think that it is precisely for what is to come in 2018. We know perfectly well that we women are 52% of the voting population.
Yet families of victims express that the government's years of silence or denial of systematic gender-based violence has produced deep distrust of the state's change in perspective.
As women, we are not numbers of votes. We know that we are confronting inaction by the state. We know that we continue to be at risk, and we will continue to be attentive.
In a closed-door meeting, authorities of the Interior Ministry voted to implement for the first time in the country's history the gender alert for 11 municipalities, the most densely populated in the state.
The decision was taken that the alert be implemented, I insist, in those 11 municipalities that concentrate 55% of the incidents in the state of Mexico.
While civil society groups recognize the measure as a first step, they continue to demand that the entire state receive the alert and that special attention be given to impunity.
The topic that has been forgotten is the theme of impunity. Yes, there can be these other factors, poverty, what have you, but if we don't locate impunity as the main problem, then we will not understand why femicides have increased so much in Mexico.
While victims' families and activists demand the gender alert for the entire state of Mexico, they also demand that the measure be applied in 9 other states where cases of femicide and violence toward women are high. Clayton Khan, teleSUR, Mexico City.
Raise your voices to tell the world that Haiti has been resisting for 100 years. They continue to loot our riches and the misery continues. Down with imperialism, down with the occupation. The demonstrators paid homage to the Haitian campesinos and the patriots who fought for freedom.
The goal of this march is to say death to the dictatorship, death to the occupation. Long live Haiti and the Haitian people. USA, terrorists.
A century ago, the population was 2.6 million people. Of these, 400,000 Haitians were forced to work as slaves in other Caribbean islands where the United States developed its industries. They turned Haiti into their source of cheap labor. We continue in misery. We continue in poverty. Who will end this tragedy? Haiti still has hope.
The Haitian people are telling the imperialists that our people are standing up. We are people with dignity, and we will never accept that this century-long occupation continues. Today we are saying enough. The UN soldiers need to leave.
Break the chains of the occupation. This is one of the principal messages on the 100 years anniversary since the first invasion of the United States.
We need to really reflect because for 100 years we've been held under this custody, and we know that no foreign intervention can solve a country's problems. The only people that can do it are the country's own citizens.
But people are also demanding reparation for the victims and for the legacy to never be forgotten.
nation à ma USA.